What if the final moments of someone you admired most were not an accident, but a calculated betrayal? Tonight, the chilling confessions surrounding the tragic death of actor Menglong have left an entire nation in shock. What unfolded inside that courtroom has shaken the world and revealed a darkness few could ever imagine. Menglong was not just a star, he was a symbol of integrity, hard work, and genuine charm. For weeks, many clung to the hope that his fall was nothing more than a cruel twist of fate. But recent court revelations shattered that illusion. Instead of misfortune, what emerged was a story of envy, betrayal, and psychological torment. The confessions revealed a truth more horrifying than anyone had imagined. Menglong's final hours were not those of a man who simply slipped and fell. They were the hours of someone deliberately stripped of his strength, his will, and his dignity. Testimonies from the courtroom painted a picture of methodical cruelty. Before he was ever brought to the balcony, he had already been betrayed in the most intimate way through his own body. Sedatives slipped into his system without his knowledge, robbed him of clarity and balance, leaving him disoriented and weak. What might have been a chance to resist was stolen before the fight even began. Forensic reports described bruises on his arms and torso, markings that bore witness to restraint and physical assault. These were not the random injuries of an accident, but the signatures of violence, evidence that someone intended for him to feel powerless. Witnesses who heard the details recounted how Yu tried, even in his haze, to fight back. There was something instinctive, almost primal, in his attempts to claw at the air, to steady himself, to protect even the smallest part of his dignity. Every motion he made was a testament to his will to survive, to hold onto the life he had built. But the drugs dulled his energy, the abuse weakened his body, and slowly the strength that had carried him through years of hard work in the entertainment industry drained away. His cries, muffled by exhaustion and fear, were not enough to break through the walls of isolation created around him. What made this revelation unbearable for many was not just the physical pain inflicted on him, but the psychological cruelty woven into every act. To drug someone is to take away their agency. To restrain them is to take away their freedom. To do both in concert is to reduce a person to a state of helplessness, a state no human being should ever be forced to endure. And yet, that was the condition Yu found himself in during his last moments, vulnerable, terrified, and betrayed by those he had trusted. The confessions made clear that his death was not only about ending his life, but about breaking his spirit before it was taken away. For fans and observers, this detail carried a weight that was impossible to ignore. It transformed grief into rage, sorrow into determination, and it reminded the world that the cruelty of envy can manifest not only in stolen opportunities, but in the deliberate destruction of a human soul. Perhaps the most devastating revelation of all was not simply the act of violence itself, but who carried it out. The confessions revealed that two of the men directly responsible for Menglong's final suffering were not strangers, not rivals, not distant enemies, but his own childhood friends, people who had once shared laughter, secrets, and the fragile innocence of youth with him. To the outside world, friendship is supposed to be a safe place, a bond that endures through both success and hardship. Yet in this tragedy, that sacred bond became the very weapon used against him. It was this betrayal, more than anything else, that struck audiences with the deepest wound, because it suggested that trust, even when built over a lifetime, can be shattered in an instant. The thought of betrayal at the hands of strangers is painful, but betrayal by those who once called themselves brothers is almost incomprehensible. These were men who had grown up alongside Yu, who had witnessed his struggles and his triumphs, who should have celebrated his rise as if it were their own. Instead, their loyalty twisted into resentment, their admiration poisoned by envy. The courtroom accounts revealed that they were not only complicit, but active participants in breaking down the very person who once believed in them without hesitation. Their hands left marks on his body, but their betrayal left scars far deeper, ones that reached into the hearts of every listener. For many fans, this truth was the most unbearable part of the story. The violence could be explained as cruelty, the mastermind's motive could be explained as envy, but the betrayal of friends was something that shook the very foundation of what it means to be human. People began to ask themselves uncomfortable questions. If trust can be turned into a weapon, how can we ever be certain of those closest to us? If years of friendship can dissolve into calculated betrayal, then what does loyalty truly mean? The betrayal of Menglong by his childhood companions became more than just part of the crime. It became the emotional core of the tragedy. It reflected a darkness that lurks within the human heart, the possibility that envy can grow so corrosive it eats through even the strongest bonds. This detail turned the case into not only a story of crime, but also a lesson about the fragility of trust, a reminder that the people we believe in most can, under the weight of jealousy, become the ones who destroy us. What emerged most chillingly from the courtroom was not only the acts themselves, but the mind that orchestrated them. The woman identified as the mastermind confessed with a coldness that unsettled everyone listening. Her motive was not greed, not revenge for a past slight, not even the pursuit of power. It was envy. A slow, corrosive envy that grew each time she saw Menglong succeed, each time she heard his name cheered, each time his presence reminded her of her own failures. She admitted that his integrity, his ability to rise above scandal, his natural connection with fans, became unbearable for her to witness. It was not that he had wronged her, but rather that his very existence exposed the gap between who she wished to be and who she actually was. This revelation struck deeply because it revealed how dangerous envy can become when left unchecked. Envy is often seen as a fleeting feeling, a shadow that passes through the human heart, but in her it had transformed into obsession, a driving force that consumed her until she could no longer separate her identity from her resentment. She did not want wealth or recognition in a healthy way. She wanted to dismantle the one person who symbolized everything she could never attain. The fact that such a destructive plan could emerge not from necessity, but from pure jealousy, made her crime all the more terrifying. The chilling part of her confession was not only her motive, but her pride. She admitted that the plot had been months in the making, that she studied his life, his routines, his vulnerabilities, and then exploited the very bonds that should have protected him. She used his friendships as tools, turned trust into chains, and orchestrated a performance where every act was meant to strip him of dignity before taking his life. To hear her describe her actions with such detachment revealed the depths of her moral decay. For those who listened, her words served as a grim reminder of the human capacity for cruelty. It was not a crime of passion, but of calculation, shaped by years of bitterness. This was envy elevated to violence, jealousy sharpened into a weapon. And in that courtroom, people realized that the deadliest enemy is sometimes not one who strikes openly, but one who watches silently, nurturing hatred until it explodes into destruction. Her confession was not only an explanation of motive, but a warning about the peril of letting envy grow unchecked, and about the devastation it can unleash when it takes hold of a human soul.